Stevie Fast Jackson KTR here with some things to do to keep yourself busy during the coronavirus pandemic. We're all stuck at the shop. We're all stuck at home, wherever you're at. And one of the things that I get approached about a lot at the racetrack is when people see us fail a component, or people see us tear up a piston or drop a valve or tear up an engine or transmission, whatever, they ask us, how do we fix it so fast? You guys have seen us put an engine in 23 minutes and fire it. You guys at Lights Out watched us put a piston in between the third and the fourth round in 25 minutes. And the way that happens is preparation in the shop. So I was kind of doing what I look at as a menial task for us, but I got to thinking about a lot of times I see you guys prepare. I see this a lot at the racetrack. A lot of my competitors, friends, you prepare at the shop, you get everything ready to go racing, but you don't spend time preparing for catastrophe. If you've watched me race long enough, you'll understand that catastrophe is kind of a way of life. So one thing that we do continually, and even more now that we have some downtime, is I try to look at and prepare for what is the worst case scenario. You'll hear me say a lot that I always plan for the worst and hope for the best. Well, if you race cars, if you drag race, round track race, any kind of racing motorsport, you're pushing your equipment to its limit. You're going to fail components. You're going to tear stuff up. How you plan for that failure determines how long it takes for you to rebound and repair it. There are many, many times in what I do where 1 minute means you either get to go down the track in the pair beside you, or you're pulling into the back of the lanes. They tell you to take it back to the trailer and you get to watch somebody have a competition solo. I always want to at least make sure if we tear something up that I'm in there in the fight. Not only tearing things up, but making component changes. You need to be able to make a stator change in 25 minutes. You need to be able to change your head gasket thickness in 20 minutes. So the way we do that is we plan to work on the stuff. We plan our work ahead. So I watch my guys torquing cylinder heads on at Lights Out, and they've got a socket, and then they've got an extension, and then they've got a torque wrench. And when you're pulling these things, our head stud's torqued to 185 foot-pounds. When you're pulling a 185-pound head stud, first of all, you got a 24-inch torque wrench, but when you're pulling on it, if it's not stable on the nut, you have to use your other hand to hold the head of the torque wrench. Otherwise, you'll just pull it off or you won't have an accurate torque rating. So I'm watching, and they're wearing themselves out. Now, if you've ever torqued 2 sets of heads on a blown alcohol Hemi by yourself, you're wore out when you get done. But we always try to figure out a way to make it better. So today I'm gonna make some sockets that are the right length to be able to torque the cylinder heads on the frame rail. It's not that big of a deal, very simple. You guys can do this at home, and it'll help you if you have to put a cylinder head back on the track. You now can pull the thing without holding the head of the torque wrench or putting light pressure on the torque wrench. Same with buzzing them off. I try to have each of my tool sets that we're gonna service in a separate box. So we have a top end box that we use to take the heads off. We have a bottom end box that we use for underneath. We have a torque converter box that has all of our tools to remove the transmission, change the torque converter. We have a rear end and a back half box that has all those tools to move the 4-link, put a third member in it, replace your drive shaft sensor, etc., etc., etc. So the more that you prepare for failure, the better you will do when there's times of failure. So take some of this time that we're down in the shop, look at your engine program, and see how you can make it better. Like my guys, they hate me, but guess what? In the morning, we're going to take the Shadow, which is perfectly ready to go, ready to run, and we're gonna see if we can beat our record swapping motors. And you guys may see some YouTube for that. We do stuff like that in our downtime. I want to see if Jack can put a stator in our torque converter in 25 minutes. And if he can't, we have to figure out a way to make it easier to work on. So follow along with me today. We're gonna make some sockets to make torquing a 185 foot-pound cylinder head a little easier. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a socket that fits your cylinder head nuts, and then we're gonna use the drive side of it. We're gonna use the socket side of it. Basically just gonna put it in the bandsaw, cut it down the middle. I'm gonna show you guys how to cut a register in it in the lathe. We're gonna figure out how long it needs to be. We're gonna cut some chromoly tubing and extend it to make it to where it's a nice tight fit on the nut. I've got a socket chucked up in the bandsaw. I basically just put a mark in the socket past where the splines are into that hollow part of the socket that you want to cut. So we're just going to fire that up. It's pretty hard material, so it's going to take it a little bit. We'll get her buzzed up, cut in half, and then deburr it and show you guys how to cut a register on the lathe. This bandsaw has absolutely cut this socket crooked as hell. Like the Portaband would have been better. We're gonna have a lot of surfacing to do here on this unit. Well, it turns out that my bandsaw is not the tool to cut an impact socket. Check out that lopsided unit. Number one rule, dude, I can't even use that socket. Okay, so my first initial attempt at cutting the socket with the bandsaw, failure. 15 minutes, knocked the blade off of it, wore it out, and cut it crooked like this. So we're gonna use a Portaband. First thing we gotta do is chop it off. This is a hardened socket, so as you can see from me destroying my bandsaw over there, we definitely struggled to cut it. Portaband, cut nearly anything. You can fix most all the problems in your life unless you're a turbo racer with a Portaband. If you're a turbo racer, there's no help for you. As you guys can see, I am no Portaband expert. No, that thing's good. It's ready to cut up some wood or anything you want to cut. No, that means that you're finally removing an amount of material. Do not listen to it. It's not always talking. People who cannot do teach. You want to read those back? See, I told you, anytime the camera's on, the beast is going to get in the shot. Alright, so we got our sockets that we parted. As you can see, the bandsaw didn't really cut them perfectly true. They're a little wonky. We're going to skin these bad boys up in the lathe and just face them. If you guys don't have a lathe at home, just you can do pretty much the same thing on a belt sander, bandsaw. I mean a belt sander. Shoot, I've faced stuff with a chop saw before. Sir? Plexiglass. Hot stock tip coming in. KTR's buying plexiglass. I saw that it said that they're putting all that stuff up. I need to invest in a money print machine. All right, now we got the old girl face. We're gonna cut a register in it that fits inside the chromoly tubing that we're gonna use. So basically, we're just gonna take a piece of chromoly tubing, measure the ID. This is not gonna be exact. This is about 1.04 inches. So we're gonna cut a register in this thing to fit inside the ID of the tubing, just to help it keep it centered when we're welded up. If you guys don't have a lathe, you can just make sure both sides are flat. We're not gonna buzz this apart with an air tool. We're gonna use just the impact and a socket in our deal. So you're not gonna turn it a lot of RPMs. I'm gonna cut a register just because we got a lathe here. This is gonna sound pretty bad because this is a hard socket. Now, if we've done our job correctly, this tubing will fit nice over that socket. I don't want to move my live feed. When it does. Alright, so we're good to go. One piece there. We're going to do the same thing to the other piece and get her ready to rip tater chip. To what?
So I ain't saying we can't, we just can't with the equipment we got without taking you.
Oh, gotcha.
That was 12 bar time. Now do I change the amount of
Alright, so for our purposes, we're going to have our overall socket length 18 inches. Measuring the pieces of socket that I cut off, I need a 15-inch piece of chromoly. I'm going to lead that 1/4 of an inch to the long side so that I can true it up. It's not going to cut it perfectly straight. If you cut this bad boy 15 inches, you're going to, I have 3 inches of socket, so if you cut this 15 inches, you're going to end up short. So I'm going to cheat her 15 1/4. Get her high and tight. Ready for it. Ready for the track. Ready for the school boards. We're going to see if I obliterated the bandsaw blade too, which is a definite possibility. Now when you're doing stuff like this, if you're going to make more than one, now's the time. I'm going to make 3 of these things, so I've already chopped some more sockets up. Cut off a couple of them. We're in a game still, you're worried about knocking the blade off. This thing's ready for a track. Ready for ninja activity against the turbo cars, defense against coronavirus, or torquing the cylinders on. The good old-fashioned way. All right, we're gonna chuck our chromoly up in the lathe just to flatten it, just because I want it to be perfect. Don't have a lathe, knock this thing out with a bandsaw. It's probably decently straight enough. My machining and welding capabilities are not good enough for it to be. When you do that, the leading edge is going to be pretty sharp. You're going to need a deburring tool of some sort. My bit is pretty much worn out. Yeah, that feels nice. Yeah, we're gonna snake on there and get that thing. Alright, now if you measured correctly and got all your machining correctly, that should fit nice and snug in there, just like it does. I'm gonna knock the strap off the outside of this thing just for welding while it's in here. Once again, mind you, I'm definitely not a machinist. I'm sure a lot of you back that are watching this that are machinists are like, what is this redneck doing with this lathe? Alright, that's us. All right, now we're gonna set this deal up in the lathe and weld it over here, just to kind of make sure it's halfway round, and we'll burn it in. One key thing that you need to remember here is do not weld the same side of the socket to both ends of the tube. Not on this project, but I'm just saying that because I've done that before. I'm all bragging about my head torque and socket or wheel torque and socket or whatever you got, and they go to hook it up and they're laughing. So we've got the drive side in there. We're gonna take the tube extension piece, strapper in there, put our socket in there. We're gonna see if we're machine skills are possible. Looks pretty good. So we've got it held up in there. We're just gonna burn it in now, which y'all will get to see how terrible my welding skills are. And be ready to rip. Pretty good. Come on, Phil. Yeah, Patsis is gonna be all excited about it. Come on, man. That'll be good for him. All right. Definitely not a welder, but it's good. Burn me in this right there. All right, we're ready to pile some cylinder heads home. Now, as you can see, we have the new KTR cylinder head Torquing 9000 socket done. Now, this thing's designed to be used in the car, so it's really too long to be used on an engine stand. You pretty much snatch the engine off the stand. We built this thing to be in the car with frame rails to give us the exact height. But as you can see, it's very stable. As much as we blow up and knock the cylinder heads off of one, it's gonna make putting the cylinder heads back on quicker. Now Billy can burn it up with no fear in his heart. We can melt the front end in half and not even worry about it. The boys will be able to get a rack knocking this thing in no time. Pulling that thing at 185 is not near as big a task as what it was before. Use this downtime to plan your work and work your plan. This is Stevie Fast.